Hey there, it's David Flipperforce. Got to open our expense tracker tool. We just launched a new update that completely revamps the expense tracker with some new tools and functionality that you can use to help you better organize the expense tracking and project accounting process for your house flips. If you're like me, I really don't like the accounting process. Tracking all of my expenses is kind of a drag. So hopefully our expense tracker tool helps simplify that process, helps you organize that process to make that accounting process a little less painful. So I've got the expense tracker open here. Just going to walk you through some of the new updates that we just pushed up to the expense tracker. One of the first things we did was we added in a new invoice column. So the invoice column is a new way for you to organize all of your expenses by invoice number. So a lot of times when you have a receipt or an invoice, you're going to have multiple expenses on that invoice or that receipt that belong to different categories. So for example, if you go out to Home Depot, a lot of times you're going to be maybe buying, plumbing materials. So you're buying a toilet, faucet fixture, but then you might also buy a vanity cabinet. You might buy some flooring or some doorknobs or stuff like that. Technically, all of that stuff really needs to be categorized into different categories, but it's all going to be landing on the same invoice number or receipt. So the new invoice number column allows you to quickly search and find and organize all of those expenses that are on the same receipts or invoice numbers that need to be broken down by a different category. So that's a new column that we added in there to help you do that. With that, we're also going to be adding in a new accounting report. So be looking for this in the next couple weeks, but we're going to be adding in an invoice report, which will organize all of those expenses that have the same invoice number. They'll all be listed in a table, so that way you can go through your receipts that you've got and you can match up all of those line items that are on the receipt with the line items that you've got in our expense tracker tool. And then hopefully, those totals for those invoices and receipts will match up with what you've got on your receipt. Your hard copy receipt that you got from Home Depot or your contractor. You can line that stuff up and make sure everything's matching up that way. So that'll be a new update that we'll be pushing here shortly. In the meantime, we've got that new invoice number, so you can start adding in those invoices for your expenses. Another thing you'll notice is we added in a new tax column. So a lot of times, if you're buying materials from Home Depot or Lowe's, previously we didn't have a spot to really allocate that tax. Now you can plug in that breakdown of tax for those line items. Another update that we're going to be pushing up here in the next week is going to be a new way for you to split receipts. So along the same lines that I've been talking about with these invoices, where you've got multiple categories, you've got plumbing, you've got light fixtures, you've got doorknobs, stuff like that, all on one receipt. If you're buying from Home Depot, you'll be able to break down that receipt. You'll be able to split that receipt and split up all of those expenses into your different categories directly in that one expense with the same invoice number. And then it'll also have a tax item there that you can use to break down the taxes. So again, on that receipt, it always gets a little awkward, because if you've got $1,000 of materials that you're purchasing from Home Depot, but then you've got $75 in material taxes, how do you allocate that to all of your category breakdowns? Well, in our new thing that we've got built out, you'll be able to, it'll automatically break that down. So it's going to basically automatically divide it up based upon a percentage of the different categories that you got there. So that way you don't have to do that. So that's why we added in the new tax column. So you can take care of that sales tax that's usually on those material receipts when you're buying materials and stuff like that. The next thing you'll notice is that we've added in some new sort filter functionality. So along the top here, you'll just see this little icon in every single column that we've got here. And that just allows you to sort the data by newest to oldest. So if you want to see all of your receipts and expenses in here from newest to oldest or oldest to newest, you can quickly sort it that way. You can sort it by invoice number. So if you want to sort it alphanumerically or whatever, you can sort it by invoice number. You can sort your description by alphabetical order if for whatever reason you want to do that. Same thing with accounts, vendors, categories, labor, and then you can also sort your amount column by largest to smallest or smallest to largest. So if you want to see your biggest expenses, you can sort it that way. Same thing with tax and amount. So that's some new functionality there that will hopefully allow you to sort and filter your data a little bit better. Another thing that we added was search. So this is going to be one of the more powerful features that I think you're going to get a lot of use out of. You can search the expense tracker to really find just about anything now. So if you've got a couple hundred expenses in the expense tracker and you're having trouble finding something, you can quickly just start typing in some letters here to search for your cabinetry. And now you can see that we have all of our cabinetry materials here based upon our search. You can search by a specific account. So if you want to see how much you spent on your Southwest credit card, you can just type in Southwest. You want to see how much you've paid to a particular contractor, so ABC Rehab or maybe Home Depot. You can do it that way. Same thing with categories or amounts. You know, a lot of times maybe you want to make sure that you have a specific amount in your expense tracker. Well, let's look for our $7,600 amount here. So you can see, we can search to see, okay, we do have that $7,600 expense for cabinetry materials in the expense tracker. So I think you're going to get a lot of use out of the search functionality there just to help you find your expenses that you've got in the expense tracker. And then another thing we added was new export functionality. So you've got copy. That's essentially just going to copy it to your clipboard. So that way you can paste it into a spreadsheet or paste it wherever you need to. CSV is going to actually just export it to a CSV spreadsheet file, so that way you can get it into Microsoft Excel and then really do whatever you want with it. So you can see maybe you want to just double check our numbers that we've got in the expense tracker, make sure that everything's totaling properly. You can use that Excel formula functionality to quickly, track stuff in Excel. So if your accountant needs that, you can export all of your expenses to Excel that way, or you can print it to a PDF. So this is just going to print it to a PDF document, basically as shown in the expense tracker. So just in order. It's really not anything too special. Just remember, we do have all of these other reports that are probably a little bit prettier looking for you. So we've got some expense reports, category expense reports, vendor reports, account expense reports, global expense reports, final profit statements. So I think you're going to get more use out of these, but for whatever reason, if you just want to export everything that you've got in the expense tracker to a PDF exactly as shown, you can export that to a PDF. And then finally, I think one thing else I want to address on that is when you do this export, it'll actually export everything that's currently shown on the expense tracker. So I guess, for example, if you wanted to sort and filter this data to only show your expenses that you paid to the ABC Rehab contractor, you could sort the expense tracker by that particular vendor. And then when you export this to a CSV spreadsheet, it's going to only have those expenses in the CSV spreadsheet that are for that ABC Rehab vendor. So again, that'll probably be another powerful tool for you, is using that sort filter functionality to sort and filter the data, to sort it by vendor. Maybe you want to see a particular credit card that you have that you're spending money on. You can see all of the expenses that you've got tracked here in the expense tracker by that particular credit card. Then if you want to export that to a CSV, it's going to only show those expenses that you've got on that particular credit card for that project. So that's a quick overview of some of the functionality that we added in there. One last thing to talk about is going to be some just basic usability improvements that we made. So you'll notice that we've added in some new pagination functionality, which basically will be helpful when you have, pages upon pages of expenses in the expense tracker. If you've got a couple hundred expenses in here, it can get a little overwhelming and it can actually slow the software down. So we added in pagination, which is going to allow you to show a limited number of entries in the expense tracker. So the default setting is to show 25 entries. So when you first load in the expense tracker, it's going to show the first or the latest 25 entries that you've got in the expense tracker here. But if you ever do need to show, 50 or 100 just to see everything in there, you can do it that way. And then you will see that at the bottom here, there's going to be a page here Where if you've got hundreds of expenses in here, you're going to have multiple pages down here that you can use to quickly navigate between all of your different expenses that you've got in the expense tracker. But again, if you're having trouble finding something, you can always use that search functionality there to quickly find something that you're having trouble finding in the expense tracker. So that is a quick overview of some of the tools and functionality that we just launched to the expense tracker. Be looking for some new updates that will be launching next week. So again, we're going to be adding in some new functionality for you to upload receipt images. So you'll be able to, take a picture on your phone of the receipt and then upload that to our software directly to the expense tracker, and then you'll be able to attach it to specific expenses in the expense tracker. And another thing that we're going to be doing is that split receipts functionality. So again, when you've got plumbing and electrical, lighting fixtures, doors, doorknobs, all ending up on the same receipt, that new split receipts functionality is going to allow you to quickly split a receipt and organize all of those expenses onto one invoice, but then it'll automatically categorize everything and break everything down for you. So that way, if you do have expenses that are going to different categories, it'll make that entire process a little bit easier for you. So that is a quick overview. If you have any questions about the new expense tracker revamp and any other tools or functionality that we've got coming down the pipeline, please let us know.